USB microphones have always been considered to be the cheaper, more affordable alternatives to studio microphones. In the past, you've usually been able to pick one up for somewhere in the range of about $50 to $100. But recently, we've slowly started to see more microphones that cost even more, ranging from the $150 Mayono PD400X all the way up to the $300 Earthworks Icon. Now, even though these microphones are targeted a bit more toward the prosumer market who want a microphone for things like streaming and content creation, there are still a lot of really solid options in the budget category for these exact purposes, like the $50 Fine Amplagame A8 or the $40 Samson Meteor. Which begs the question, are USB microphones getting too expensive? And do expensive USB microphones justify the money, or are you better off getting a microphone that's seemingly just as capable for a fraction of the price? Well, we're going to answer that in this video using the $200 Rode PodMic USB and its much cheaper alternative, the $55 Fine Amplagame AM8. And I think the best place to start would be a general overview of both of these microphones. They're both dynamic microphones with pretty small but stout bodies and foam pop filters. They connect over USB-C as well as XLR, and they have onboard dials and controls. They also have lighting that lets you know if they're powered on, along with headphone jacks in the back if you want to listen back to what the microphones are picking up in real time. So physically, they're pretty similar, but once you start to look past the high-level overview, you start to notice some of the less obvious differences. And even though these both have a pop filter, the Amplagame is designed to be part of the microphone itself, while the PodMic is designed to be used with or without it. The PodMic's filter also creates a little bit more distance between you and the grill, and coupled with the internal filter, it does a much better job of blocking plosives than the Amplagame. And even though both of these plug in over USB, the PodMic can actually be used right with your phone, whereas the Amplagame can only be used with your computer. And so having this ability to plug into your phone can really help streamline the process. But the Amplagame comes with a more comprehensive set of controls with a headphone knob, gain knob, mute switch, and RGB switch. Meanwhile, the PodMic just has a headphone dial that doubles as a mute button. Also, the overall look and tone between them is completely different. The Amplagame kind of feels like something that you'd use on live streams with the square shape and the RGB, but the PodMic looks a lot more professional, like something that belongs in a studio or on a video podcast. I wouldn't say one necessarily looks better than the other, but they definitely give off their own atmospheres, and I think that's going to be a big deciding factor between which of the ones that you use if you plan to use them for video. Sound-wise, the PodMic is a bit flatter and a bit more neutral, and it's meant to be EQ'd to fit individual voices a bit better, like I have it right now. The Amplagame, on the other hand, comes straight out of the box with a bit more emphasis on the bass and the treble to make your voice sound a bit fuller and more fun to listen to. And one thing that I tend to see on these less expensive microphones is that they introduce a lot more noise into the recording. And this means you end up hearing your voice along with a small hiss in the background, and that's definitely the case on the Amplagame. But the PodMic, meanwhile, is completely different. This actually has better preamps that get rid of most of the noise, so you end up hearing more of your voice and less of the hiss. It's been really nice having this, since I don't feel like I have to mask the sound with music or something just to keep the hiss from being heard. This is pretty much where the Amplagame ends. You get the controls, the looks, the features, and that's about it. PodMic, on the other hand, and we've still got quite a ways to go with that. Unlike the Amplagame, which is basically just a microphone and nothing else, the PodMic is effectively designed to have a built-in audio interface. It integrates with the Rode Central software to not only give you an interface and functionality similar to the high-end Rodecaster Pro 2, but it even lets you plug in up to 4 microphones at once and use them all together simultaneously. Aside from that, you get EQ settings, gain level, a compressor, noise gate, and a low-cut filter, and because the PodMic itself has an internal DSP, it saves these settings right onto the microphone itself, so you don't have to keep the software open when you use it. Now, even though managing all of this in post technically gives you a bit more control, having the microphone itself do all the work really does take that stress off of you, the content creator, since it takes out those extra steps that you otherwise spent in your recording software. Plus, if you're using it for real-time recording, like in a Zoom call or a live stream, then all that processing is done in real time, so it'll still apply. You don't have to wait until after the fact to apply all those effects. And this brings us back to our original question. Are USB microphones too expensive, and are budget microphones the better option? Well, let's start by looking at budget microphones. Now, from my experience with the Fine, I'm pretty surprised by the quality that it manages to pack in for only about $55. It sounds good, it feels good, looks good, and it has all the controls and functionality that I think most people are ever going to need. Honestly, if you're looking to get started with content creation or you just want to upgrade your Zoom audio, something like this is an absolutely fantastic pick, and you really don't need to spend much more than this to get good audio. But is something like the PodMic USB worth 4 times the price? Well, yes and no. Let's be honest, you're definitely going to get better quality with a PodMic USB over the long term than with an Ampli-Game, less noise, more processing, and a much more effective pop filter. But even though it sounds better than the Ampli-Game in my opinion, it's not 4 times better. And that right off the bat might be enough to make you think that more expensive USB mics aren't exactly worth it. The thing is, you're not spending the extra money on sound quality. And this is something that a lot of people get wrong about microphones. Things like the PodMic USB, the Shure MV7 Plus, and the Beacon mic all have something that the Ampli-Game, the Meteor, and most other budget microphones don't have. Software. Software makes all the difference, and as a content creator, being able to have most of the audio work done automatically is a major plus. It really shaves off those precious seconds that you'd otherwise be spent on pretty tedious work, and it's one less roadblock between me and the final product. Plus, I can see the ability to record straight to my phone being a big plus at some point in the future, since it really cuts out having to align the audio track with the video. Again, a small roadblock that can make a huge difference. So my answer to this question is yes, for the right kind of person. Like I said, if you're wanting a general purpose microphone or you're just dipping your toes into the world of content creation, budget microphones are the way to go, and a good quality one could last you for a really long while. But if you're more serious about the work you do and you want to help streamline your workflow, then it might just be worth spending extra to lower that friction. I'll leave links to both of these microphones that I compared, and if you want to hear more about them, then make sure to check out my individual reviews, and I'll see you over there. Adios.